Commander Oliver of the Valerian fleet stood in the observation deck of Station Epsilon 7, watching the endless darkness of space. His blue skin reflected the pale light coming from the distant stars. He had been commanding this station for 15 years, but nothing interesting ever happened here. The station was old, forgotten, and mostly abandoned. Most of the advanced civilizations had moved on to newer, better stations long ago. Only a small crew remained to maintain the basic systems and watch for any unusual activity. Oliver walked through the empty corridors of the station, his footsteps echoing against the metal walls. His 4 eyes scanned everything around him, looking for problems that needed to be fixed. The station was falling apart slowly. Pieces of equipment broke down regularly, and the maintenance crew barely kept up with all the repairs. But today, Oliver decided to explore the lower sections of the station, areas that nobody visited anymore. As he walked deeper into the abandoned parts of the station, Oliver found something strange. There was a large machine standing alone in a small room. It looked very old and very broken. The machine had a curved metal body, and its surface was covered with rust and dirt. On the front there was a display screen, but it was so dark and damaged that Oliver could barely see anything on it. Next to the display there were several metal slots and buttons. Above the machine, there was a faded sign that read, "Galactic Vending Machine Refreshments for All Species." Oliver had heard stories about this machine. Long ago, when the station was new and full of life, this machine sold food and drinks to all the workers and visitors. Thousands of beings from different planets had used it every day. But something happened to the machine 100 years ago. Nobody knew exactly what went wrong, but one day it stopped working. Engineers from many different civilizations tried to fix it, but nothing worked. Eventually, everyone gave up. The machine became just another piece of useless equipment on an old station. The commander stared at the machine for a long time. He thought about all the technology his people had developed over thousands of years. His civilization could build ships that traveled faster than light. They could create computers that could think and learn. They could move planets if they wanted to. But they could not fix this old machine. It seemed impossible. Oliver was about to leave when he heard a sound. Someone was coming down the corridor. He turned and saw a human walking toward him. The human was tall and had brown hair. He wore a simple gray uniform with a small patch that identified him as an engineer. His name was David, and he had joined the station crew only a few weeks ago as part of a new program. The program was meant to help humans learn more about working in space and about alien cultures. David stopped when he saw the machine. His eyes became wide with interest. He walked closer to it and started examining it carefully. He looked at the rusty surface, the broken display, and the old buttons. He ran his fingers over the metal slots and tried to read the faded sign above the machine. "This is incredible," David said to Commander Oliver. "Do you know how old this machine is?" "About 100 years since anyone tried to use it," Oliver replied. "It has been broken for all that time. Many engineers have tried to repair it, but it is too damaged to fix." David smiled. He had a strange look in his eyes, like he was seeing something that nobody else could see. "Can I try to fix it?" he asked. Commander Oliver was surprised by this question. "Why would you want to try? All the advanced technology we have cannot fix it. Your species has only been in space for a few hundred years. You do not have the knowledge we have." "Maybe that is exactly why I can fix it," David said. "Sometimes when you think too much about a problem, you cannot see the simple answer. Let me try. I have some basic tools in my room. Give me one day and I will show you something interesting." Oliver did not believe that this young human could succeed where so many advanced beings had failed. But he was curious. He had nothing to lose by letting David try. Besides, the station was so boring that even a failed attempt would be more interesting than watching empty space all day. "Okay," Oliver said. "You have until tomorrow morning. But I warn you, many great engineers have tried before you." David nodded and ran back to his room to get his tools. Commander Oliver sat down on a metal bench near the machine and waited. He did not expect anything to happen. But something inside him hoped that maybe, just maybe, this human would surprise him. The next morning came quickly. David returned to the room with a small bag full of tools. But Oliver was shocked when he saw what was in the bag. There were simple tools like wrenches and screwdrivers. There was a tool that the humans called a flashlight. And there was something that Oliver had never seen used for repair work before. It was a roll of tape. Not special space tape or advanced technological tape. It was simple duct tape, the kind that humans had used for thousands of years to fix things. Oliver wanted to laugh. This human was going to use tape to fix a machine that the greatest technological minds in the galaxy could not repair. It seemed impossible and ridiculous. But David was already working. He was examining every part of the machine with his flashlight, looking carefully at every connection and every circuit. He was thinking like an engineer but also thinking like someone who simply wanted to solve a practical problem. David worked for several hours. He moved slowly and carefully, testing each part and understanding how the machine was supposed to work. Then he found the problem. A simple power coupling had come loose long ago. This caused the main power system to fail. Without power, nothing else in the machine could work either. It was such a simple problem, but because the machine was so old and complex, nobody had looked carefully enough to find it. David took out the duct tape and started to work. He secured the loose power coupling. He reinforced some of the damaged wiring. He used the tape to bridge a fractured circuit. His hands moved with confidence and skill. This was his expertise, this simple, practical work that solved real problems in the real world. Suddenly, the machine began to hum. The sound grew louder and louder. The faded display screen began to glow. Slowly, the glow became brighter and brighter until it filled the entire room with green light. The ancient vending machine was working again. Commander Oliver stood watching as David continued his work on the vending machine. The green light from the display screen was now steady and bright. The machine was humming with a sound that had not been heard in 100 years. David wiped his hands on his uniform and smiled at the commander. But the work was not finished yet. There was much more to do to make the machine completely functional. David opened a small compartment on the side of the machine and looked inside. He could see many different parts and circuits. Some of them were corroded and broken. Some of them were covered with dust and dirt from 100 years of sitting and used. David took out his flashlight and examined each part carefully. He was looking for anything that might be damaged or broken. He was thinking about the problem in a way that was very different from how the advanced aliens thought about it. The Valerian engineers had tried to use complex computer systems to diagnose the machine's problems. They had scanned it with advanced technology and tried to understand it through mathematical calculations. But they had missed the simple, practical problems that were right in front of them. They had looked for complicated solutions to what was actually a simple problem. David pulled out a small notebook and started writing down everything he found. He made notes about which parts were loose, which connections were broken, and which circuits were damaged. He did not use any computer to help him. He just used his eyes, his hands, and his practical knowledge. This was the human approach to engineering. Humans did not always have the most advanced technology, but they had something else. They had the ability to see problems in a simple way and find practical solutions. As David worked, other members of the station crew began to gather. News had spread quickly that a human was trying to fix the ancient vending machine. Some of the crew members were curious. Some of them were skeptical. But all of them came to watch. There was a Valerian technician named Kess. There was a robot from the manufacturing sector. There was even a small alien being from a distant planet who communicated only through lights and sounds. Commander Oliver introduced David to the gathered crowd. This human engineer is attempting to repair the vending machine using his own methods, Oliver explained. We shall see if his approach is different from ours. David looked at all the watching faces and felt a little nervous. But he did not let that stop him. He was confident in his work and his knowledge. He had fixed thousands of machines throughout his life. This one was just older and more complicated than most, but the basic principles were the same. David took out more tools from his bag. He had a small hammer for gentle tapping. He had oil for lubricating rusty joints. He had wire strippers and connectors for the electrical systems. And he had his roll of duct tape. The duct tape was his secret weapon. Throughout human history, duct tape had been used to fix almost anything. It could hold things together, seal connections, and provide temporary solutions to immediate problems. The technician Kess watched carefully as David worked. "Why are you using such primitive materials?" Kess asked. Her voice showed doubt and confusion. "We have advanced synthetic materials that are far superior to that tape." David smiled and explained his thinking. "Sometimes simple is better," he said. "This tape is flexible, strong, and it works. It does not need complex installation or special tools. I can use it right away to fix the immediate problems. Once the machine is working again, we can replace the temporary fixes with better materials if we want to." This was the key difference between the human approach and the approach of the advanced civilizations. Humans were practical problem solvers. They did not always need the best materials or the most advanced technology. They just needed something that would work quickly and effectively. They would rather have a working solution now than wait for a perfect solution later. David started working on the power coupling that was the main problem. He cleaned away the rust and corrosion with a small brush. He applied some oil to help loosen the tight connection. Then he carefully tightened it back into place. The connection was now secure. Power could flow through the system again. Next, David worked on the wiring that carried electricity throughout the machine. Some of the wires were damaged and could not carry power safely. David used his wire strippers to cut away the damaged sections. Then he connected the good pieces together and used the duct tape to insulate and protect the connections. His work was careful and precise. Every connection was secure. Every piece was in its proper place. The robot from the manufacturing sector made strange sounds as it watched David work. The sounds seemed to indicate approval or interest. Even the small alien being with the lights and sounds seemed fascinated by the human's approach. They had never seen an engineer work this way before. It was different from anything they had experienced. David worked for several more hours. He strengthened the circuit relay with duct tape. He secured loose connections throughout the machine. He replaced damaged parts with new pieces from his toolkit. Every action had a purpose. Every repair made the machine more likely to work properly. Finally, David took a step back and examined his work. He had used only basic tools and simple materials. There was duct tape visible on several parts of the machine. It looked crude compared to the advanced technology that the Valorians and other aliens were familiar with. But David believed it would work. "I think it is ready," David said to Commander Oliver. "We can try to turn it on now." Oliver walked forward and pressed a button on the machine's control panel. For a moment nothing happened. Then the humming sound began again. This time it was different. It was steady and strong. The green light on the display screen grew brighter. The machine was waking up after 100 years of silence. All the watching crew members stood in amazement. The human engineer had done what the greatest minds in the galaxy could not do. He had fixed the ancient machine using nothing but practical knowledge and simple tools. The vending machine came to life with a sound that had not been heard in 100 years. The humming grew louder and stronger as electricity flowed through its systems for the first time in a century. The green display screen brightened until it was almost blinding. Commander Oliver and all the crew members who had gathered around stood completely still, watching in silence. They could not believe what they were seeing. David stepped back from the machine and crossed his arms over his chest. A proud smile was on his face. He knew his work had been successful. The machine was no longer a useless piece of broken equipment. It was alive again, ready to serve its original purpose of providing food and drinks to anyone who needed them. The display screen flickered several times and then text began to appear on it. Words formed slowly, as if the machine was remembering how to communicate after such a long sleep. The text said, "Welcome to your Galactic Vending Machine. Please select your item." Below the message, a menu appeared showing different kinds of food and drinks that were available inside the machine. Commander Oliver walked closer to the display and examined it carefully. He could see items listed that came from different planets and different civilizations. There were crystalline candies that sparkled like tiny gems. There were nutrient bars made from materials that had not existed for 50 years. There were beverages in sealed containers that glowed with soft colors. Some of the items in the machine had come from civilizations that no longer existed. This ancient machine held treasures from the history of the galaxy. "This is remarkable," said Kess, the Valorian technician. She was still holding her advanced scanning device, but she had stopped using it. "The machine has preserved its contents perfectly. Everything inside is still in good condition, even after 100 years. David nodded. "The sealed containers protected the items from decay," he explained. "As long as the machine kept everything at the right temperature and pressure, nothing would go bad. It was designed to work for a very long time." The small alien being with the lights made a series of bright flashes. Even though nobody could understand what the alien was saying, it was clear from the pattern of the lights that it was excited and impressed. The robot from the manufacturing sector made a sound that seemed like applause or approval. Commander Oliver reached into his pocket and took out a credit chip. This was a small device that contained currency that could be used anywhere in the galaxy. He held it up to a sensor pad on the machine's front. The sensor recognized the credit chip immediately. A soft beeping sound came from the machine, and the display changed to show the price of different items. "I want to try one of the ancient beverages," Oliver said. He looked at the menu and selected an item called Crystalline Star Juice. The name sounded interesting and mysterious. According to the display, this drink had not been produced for over 75 years. The civilization that made it had disappeared long ago. Oliver pressed the button to select the item. The machine made a series of clicking and whirring sounds. Inside the machine, mechanical arms began to move. They had not moved in 100 years, but they still worked perfectly. The arms moved through the shelves of items inside the machine and found the container with the crystalline star juice. They picked it up carefully and moved it toward the dispensing slot at the bottom of the machine. A moment later, a small container dropped into the collection tray at the bottom of the machine. The container was beautiful. It was made of clear material, and inside the container, a liquid that glowed with a soft blue color swirled around. The liquid seemed to have its own light source. Oliver reached down and took the container from the collection tray. He held it up to the light and examined it carefully. The drink looked exactly as it must have looked 75 years ago when it was first placed inside the machine. The glow of the liquid was mesmerizing. Oliver carefully opened the container and took a small sip. His 4 eyes widened with surprise. The taste was incredible. It was cold and refreshing. It had flavors that were both sweet and spicy at the same time. There was something magical about drinking something that had been preserved for so long. It was like tasting a piece of history. "This is impossible," Oliver said softly. "This drink should have lost its flavor long ago. It should have become stale. But it tastes perfect as if it was just made." David smiled. "The machine did exactly what it was designed to do," he said. "It preserved everything perfectly. That is the real engineering achievement of this machine. Whoever built it 100 years ago knew that it would need to keep things fresh for a very long time. They built it well." Other crew members wanted to try the machine as well. The robot requested a nutrient bar that was designed for mechanical beings. Kes selected a crystalline candy that sparkled like a jewel. The small alien being used its lights to select an item that seemed to match its preferences. Each time someone made a selection, the machine responded perfectly. The mechanical arms moved smoothly. The items were dispensed without any problems. Everything worked exactly as it was supposed to work. Word spread quickly throughout the station. Within an hour, more crew members came to see the working vending machine. Some of them had never seen it operate before. The oldest crew members who had worked on the station for many years remembered when the machine was broken. They were amazed to see it working again. David watched all this activity with quiet satisfaction. His simple approach had worked. The duct tape had held everything together. The practical fixes had restored the machine to full function. He had proven that sometimes the simplest solution was the best solution. Sometimes the most advanced technology was not needed to solve a problem. Sometimes all you needed was knowledge, skill, and the willingness to try something different. Commander Oliver approached David and put a hand on his shoulder. "You have done something remarkable today," the commander said. "You have brought something back to life that everyone else thought was dead. This is true engineering." David felt proud and happy. He had not just fixed a machine. He had shown an entire space station that there was value in practical, simple approaches to solving problems. The news about the repaired vending machine spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within just a few days, messages started arriving at Station Epsilon 7 from different planets and civilizations. They all wanted to know more about how David had fixed the ancient machine. They all wanted to understand the human approach to engineering that had succeeded where advanced technology had failed. Commander Oliver received a communication from the Valerian High Council on the main planet. The council members were very interested in what had happened. They sent a message asking David to explain his methods in detail. They wanted to know how a young human engineer could solve a problem that had defeated the greatest minds in Valerian history. David recorded a video message explaining his work. He showed how he had examined the machine carefully. He explained how he had found the simple problem that everyone else had missed. He talked about using basic tools and practical solutions instead of complex technology. He demonstrated how the duct tape had held the machine together while the internal systems powered up again. The video message was uploaded to the galaxy-wide communication network. Within hours, it had been viewed millions of times. Engineers from hundreds of different civilizations watched it. Scientists studied it. Technicians analyzed every step of David's work. And slowly, something began to change in how the advanced civilizations thought about engineering and problem-solving. A message arrived from the Zillion Empire, a civilization that was even more advanced than the Valorians. They had a massive research facility that had stopped working 3 years ago. The facility was so complex that their best engineers could not figure out what was wrong. They asked if David would be willing to come and examine it. They offered him a large payment and promised him the best working conditions. David accepted the invitation. He traveled to the Zillion Empire and arrived at their research facility. It was enormous, stretching across several kilometers. Inside, there were thousands of machines and computers working together. But something was causing the entire system to fail. The Zillion engineers had tried everything they could think of, but nothing worked. David spent 3 days examining the facility. He did not use any advanced scanning equipment. He did not consult with the Zillion engineers about their theories. Instead, he walked through the facility and looked at everything carefully. He touched things. He listened to the sounds the machines made. He watched how different parts of the system interacted with each other. On the fourth day, David found the problem. It was a simple air filter that had become clogged with dust. This filter was supposed to keep the cooling system clean. When it became blocked, the cooling system could not work properly. This caused the entire facility to overheat and shut down. It was such a simple problem, but because the system was so complex and advanced, nobody had thought to check something as basic as an air filter. David cleaned out the air filter and replaced it with a new one. Within an hour, the entire research facility came back to life. Machines hummed. Computers started working again. The zillion engineers were shocked and amazed. They had failed to fix the problem because they were looking for a complicated solution to what was actually a very simple problem. News of this success spread even faster than the news about the vending machine. Now the advanced civilizations began to realize something important. Humans had a different way of thinking about problems. Humans looked for simple, practical solutions first. They did not assume that everything had to be complicated. This approach often worked better than trying to use advanced technology to solve every problem. Messages started arriving from civilizations across the galaxy. They all wanted human engineers to help them with problems they could not solve. Some wanted help with broken machines. Some wanted advice on how to design systems better. Some just wanted to learn the human approach to engineering. David was no longer the only human engineer in demand. Other humans with engineering skills started receiving invitations from alien civilizations. Some humans went to the Valerian Empire. Some went to the Zillion Empire. Some went to smaller civilizations and space stations throughout the galaxy. All of them brought the same practical, simple approach to problem solving that David had demonstrated. The human engineers started a training program to teach aliens how to think like engineers who valued practical solutions. They taught them to look for the simplest explanation first. They taught them to examine problems carefully before trying to use advanced technology. They taught them that sometimes the best solution was not the most complex one, but the most practical one. Universities on different alien planets started creating classes about human engineering methods. Scientists began writing papers about the human approach to problem solving. Researchers studied how human brains thought differently about technical problems. They discovered that humans had an advantage. Humans had evolved on a planet with limited resources. Throughout their history, humans had learned to make do with what they had. They had learned to fix things with simple materials. This had shaped the human mind to think practically and creatively about solving problems. Commander Oliver watched all of this development with great interest. He saw how one simple act of fixing an old vending machine had created a wave of change across the entire galaxy. He thought about how often advanced civilizations became so focused on technology that they forgot about simple, practical thinking. David returned to Station Epsilon 7 after several months of traveling and helping different civilizations. When he arrived, Commander Oliver greeted him as a hero. The entire crew gathered to welcome him home. The vending machine was still working perfectly in the corner where they had found it. The duct tape was still visible on several of its parts. "You have changed how the galaxy thinks about engineering," Oliver told David. "You have shown us that practical knowledge is just as valuable as advanced technology. Perhaps more valuable." David smiled and looked at the old vending machine. "I just fixed a machine," he said. "I did not know it would change anything. I just wanted to solve a problem." But the truth was that David had done much more than that. He had proven that humans had something special to offer. He had shown the galaxy that sometimes the simplest solution was the best solution. And that simple fact had created a ripple effect that would change civilization forever. 1 year had passed since David first fixed the ancient vending machine on Station Epsilon 7. During this year, he had traveled to many different planets and civilizations. He had helped solve hundreds of engineering problems. He had taught countless aliens about the human approach to practical problem solving. He had become famous throughout the galaxy. But now, David decided it was time to return home to the station where it all began. The transport ship descended toward Station Epsilon 7 slowly and carefully. David looked out the window and saw the station growing larger as he approached. It looked the same as it had a year ago, but he knew that things had changed inside. The station had become a place of importance and interest. Many visitors came there now, not just to work, but to see the famous vending machine that had started a revolution in how the galaxy thought about engineering. Commander Oliver was waiting for David when he stepped out of the transport ship. The commander looked older now, but his 4 eyes were bright with happiness and pride. He embraced David in the way that Valorians did, with both arms crossed over his chest. "Welcome home, David," Oliver said. "We have been waiting for you." The station has changed much since you left. David followed Commander Oliver through the corridors of the station. As they walked, David noticed many differences. There were new signs on the walls. There were plaques and displays explaining the history of the vending machine. There were viewing areas where visitors could come and see the machine. The station had become a kind of museum dedicated to the achievement of practical engineering. When they reached the room where the vending machine stood, David stopped and stared. The machine had been carefully restored and maintained. All the rust had been removed. The display screen was bright and clear. But something special had been done to preserve the human approach that had fixed it. A transparent panel had been installed around the machine, protecting it from damage. And beneath this panel, the duct tape that David had used was still visible. It had been preserved as a symbol of human ingenuity and practical thinking. David walked closer to examine the machine. A small plaque on the wall explained what had happened. It told the story of how a human engineer had used simple materials and practical knowledge to fix a machine that had been broken for 100 years. The plaque explained how this achievement had changed how the galaxy thought about engineering and problem-solving. "We wanted to preserve this exactly as you left it," Oliver explained. "The duct tape is the most important part. It represents your approach. It shows that sometimes simple is better than complex. It shows that practical thinking can solve impossible problems." David felt emotional looking at the machine. He remembered the day he had worked on it, not knowing that his simple actions would have such big consequences. He remembered the doubt in people's faces. He remembered the moment when the machine came to life. It seemed like a long time ago, but it was only 1 year. Commander Oliver led David to a special room that had been built near the vending machine. Inside the room, there was a large computer screen and comfortable seating. "This is the Human Engineering Center," Oliver explained. "We have created this place to teach visitors about your methods and your approach to problem solving. We show videos of your work. We have classes where people can learn about practical engineering. Hundreds of visitors come here every month." A young Valerian female named Tess was working in the center. She explained her work to David. "I help organize the educational programs," she said. "We teach people from different civilizations about how to think like human engineers. We explain that the best solution is often the simplest one. We show them how to examine problems carefully before trying to use advanced technology. Many students have gone on to solve problems in their own civilizations using these methods." Over the next few days, David spent time meeting with all the people who worked at the station. He met with maintenance workers who had learned to use practical approaches in their daily work. He met with young engineers from different planets who had come to study at the Human Engineering Center. He met with scientists who were researching how human brains thought differently about technical problems. David also spent time simply sitting and watching people use the vending machine. Visitors from all over the galaxy came to see it and to use it. Some people wanted to purchase the ancient items inside. Some people just wanted to touch the machine and feel connected to the achievement that had changed the galaxy. The machine was no longer just a piece of equipment. It had become a symbol of something important and meaningful. One evening, David sat alone in front of the vending machine. He thought about his life before all of this happened. He had been just another human engineer doing his job trying to fix things. He had not known that fixing one old machine would lead to all of this. He had not known that his practical approach would change how an entire galaxy thought about problem solving. Commander Oliver found David sitting there and joined him. They sat together in silence for a while, watching the display screen of the machine glow softly in the darkness. "What are you thinking about?" Oliver finally asked. "I am thinking about how one simple act can create such big changes," David replied. "I just wanted to fix a broken machine. I did not expect any of this." "That is the nature of great achievements," Oliver said. "They often begin with simple actions performed by people who just want to solve a problem. You did what you believed was right and it changed everything." David stood up and walked to the transparent panel that protected the machine. He looked at the duct tape preserved beneath the glass. To many people in the galaxy, duct tape had become a symbol of human wisdom. It represented the idea that practical solutions were valuable. It represented the human ability to solve problems with what was available, rather than waiting for perfect conditions. "The legacy is not really about me," David said. "It is about showing that there is value in practical thinking. It is about proving that simple solutions can work. It is about humans proving that we have something valuable to offer to the galaxy." Commander Oliver nodded. "You are right," he said. "This machine and this station will always remind the galaxy of that lesson. And humans will always be remembered as the species that taught the advanced civilizations to value practical wisdom and simple thinking." David looked at the vending machine one more time. It was still working perfectly, just as it had been working for the past year. It would continue to work for many more years to come. It would continue to remind the galaxy of the day when a human engineer proved that practical thinking could solve impossible problems. And humanity's place among the stars had been secured not through weapons or military power, but through ingenuity, practical knowledge, and the simple power of duct tape.